Hello, everyone. It's 7:31. Welcome. The regular meeting is called to order. We've already done the pledge, so let's move to the roll call, please.
Mayor McFadden.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Shaw.
Present.
Trustee Brooke.
Present.
Trustee Constable.
Present.
Trustee Shara. Absent.
What thing do you need?
Agenda. I don't mind.
Okay. All right, we're all set?
Yes.
Okay. So reports and minutes. You want to bring in our guest from Orange and Rockland?
Yeah, I'm on, John. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, hi, Scott.
Very good. Hello, everybody.
All right, so I'll just introduce you. This is Scott Olszewski, thank you, who is going to be addressing the next phase of the work that Orange and Rockland is doing in the village.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
correct. Thank you. Like you said, I'm the project manager for this phase 3. Most of you have already seen probably phases 1 and 2 in the work that was ongoing. I was not the project manager for those, but I got the lucky selection for phase 3. I'll tell you off the bat, Clive Bogle is our inspector that was on site, is very familiar with the projects for phases 1 and 2. It will also be on this project as well, which is nice for continuity purposes. All right. Okay, and as stated here, we're about to just go over a few slides here for phase 3 of the Tower Hill Road reconductoring. All right, next slide, please. I put together a quick agenda here. We're going to do an overview. I'll talk briefly on some benefits for what the actual system that we're installing is doing. If we don't already know, you may have seen that slide previous. Some of the existing conditions, what we're dealing with in the field now, what our upgrades are going to be, and then the construction impacts. And I put together a couple slides for a high-level schedule for everybody, just so they understand what's going on. And if anybody has any questions, just feel free to stop me. That's all. So the overview here, similar to phases 1 and 2, it's converting the Tower Hill Road to a 13.2 kV project, which is what phases 1 and phase 2 is. Eventually, once we get to our phase 5, we'll tie that all in to this 13.2 system. By doing so, we're installing this Hendrix conductor. You've seen it probably up and run around. It's the 4-wire that are very compact and running along the streets there. But this phase 3 basically takes our Continental Road and runs it down the hill onto the East Lake Road, almost by the entrance there, maybe a half a mile into the entrance, right? For us, it's going to provide a second source to Blue Lake and also a backup for you guys as well. So we both have benefits here. And I mentioned this is the third of 5 major projects to upgrade all the mainline primaries within Tuxedo Park. All right. Next slide, please. So one back one, if you don't mind. Okay. One forward. I'm sorry. Yeah. All right. So what are a few of the benefits if we don't already know? What is Hendrix, right? From what I have been told, that we did very well after Hurricane Isaias when phase 1 was already in cut over areas this was installed did not lose power. Obviously, we have a lot of trees in Tuxedo Park, historical trees. Removing them obviously is good for our business, and also trying to work with customers as well. We try to find that happy medium there to isolate the damages that we can have in our systems within storms, right? We are adding what they call MOABs, or motor operated air brakes, to the system. These make remote switching and outage time shorter because we can isolate certain sections of lines. We're installing this Hendrix spacer design system. Basically, if a tree falls on it, it's much more resilient to outages and stuff by doing so. So being the woody, highly vegetative area of Tuxedo Park, it's a great enhancement for us. We'll say that. Increased use of automation. That's just something that we work within our control centers, and we're going to have new distribution ties that ultimately will minimize outages. And obviously, we're going to increase our clearances for all veg management within the park. Right. Next slide, please. All right. So a lot of you, the systems that are still intact, they basically are this open 3-wire system. A tree falls on it, they snap in half. We lose a lot of customers. Very old, antiquated. Right now it's fed by 2.4 kV. Again, this will be cut over to that 13.2 when we're all done. These open 3 wires are old and they are overloaded. So that's another issue. We're upgrading them. Tree outages, I mentioned in that enough, we all know. And during peak periods, which we're probably experiencing around now with these 100-degree weather temperatures, we can have low voltage conditions. Next slide, please. What are we doing? We are basically, as you know, upgrading this 3-phase distribution system. This phase 3, again, Continental Road to East Lake Road. We're looking at 4,700 feet, probably one of the smaller phases that we've done to date. Phases 1 and 2 were probably double the size. So magnitude wide, this is a little smaller. However, it's still taking a long time to get the order of the Hendrix cable, and that'll be in, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is basically, like I said, Continental Road, a couple of side spurs that I'll talk about, and then down into East Lake Road. As part of this, we're installing 3 of those MOABs, which are those motor operated switches we talked about. They'll help us with restoration times and isolating outages. And we are going to create a temporary no tie for now at the intersection of Tower Hill and East Lake. This will eventually be cut over and removed when we're done with this upgrade. Next slide. For purposes that maybe
The other
people
way.
have, I just threw a couple pictures up there.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Perfect, thank you.
Just a picture here. What you're basically going to see. This is not Tuxedo Park, obviously, but this is basically a real truck with the Hendrix cable on it. You'll see these on the road, and we'll last during these times to just work with us. We have mailers going out. We have all kinds of notifications, and I think we do, from what I told, a very good job with notifications. So there's just a quick photo of a trailer behind a truck. This is the overhead here, pretty typical. Just pulling in new cables while the old is there. We're working above it. So just a quick picture of an installation. Next, okay. A couple more specific items about this project. We're looking at installing 40 poles. In the past, I see where we've had up to 80 to 100 poles on some of the phases. So we're much smaller in magnitude here. 5 reels of Hendrix cable. We'll have all that. Our trucks will have all that. Any secondary reels that are needed for the secondaries that are going to be mounted. Pole mounted transformers. We got 25 and 50 kVA, 12 in total. Again, the numbers are down, but just as important again for this section of phase 3. And then all our miscellaneous hardware, cross arms, connectors, lightning arresters, stuff like that. You'll see the guys in our overhead just installing that. And then we will have a lay down area with dumpsters and stuff that we will probably have all our scraps being sent to. One difference with this phase is that the tree trimming was completed last fall. So there is going to be very minimal vegetation management during this one. In theory, we don't have any, but I know that we're going to go up there, install a 50-foot pole, and we're going to have to maybe possibly trim a little bit of a branch or something. But largely, most of the vegetation has been cut back for this phase. Next slide. I've mentioned a few of these roads, but more specifically here, we mentioned East Lake Road, which is just the end of it. We're going to have Tower Hill Road. The majority of it ties into Clubhouse Road and the Tower Hill Loop. And then we're going to have 2 little spurs. I think there's 3 spans onto Continental Road we're tying into, and then Circuit Road as well. So those are just 2 little spurs that we're tying into. Next slide. High overview of our map. This is the Google Maps that we use. Again, one of the shorter runs. I understand East Lake and a lot of the the West Lakes haven't already done, but just a quick snippet there of what we're looking at for phase 3. Next, please. Again, that's a typical installation once it's completed. That is not Tuxedo Park, but I had it. I just figure a little visual sometimes goes a long way for people if they haven't seen it already out there. And I think that's my last slide, schedule. So where are we with this? Village board tonight is the village board meeting. The permit checks are, I believe, in the mail. I'm working with the permitting guy there. That should not be an issue. As far as I will say Friday, we're sending out customer notification letters to the 19 customers that are affected as part of phase 3. So they will start to receive those if you're one of those 19. And then on a construction level, we're looking at basically hopefully we're in the bid process now. We're finalizing the bids. We're doing our fact findings. All our contracts, I'm hoping, will be in place in the next 2 or 3 weeks so that we can look to mobilize in mid-August. And when we do so, we'll start setting poles and start spanning the existing phases that are already up in the air. Our Hendrix conductor, which is the actual conductor reels, they had a 5-month lead time. They're due in September, so that falls in line with our schedule. And we figure the September to December timeframe for the construction and completion of phase 3 to install everything. And I think that's my last slide. Are there any questions for the field?
All right, so without objection from the board, I'll open it up to the floor and to Zoom, as well as the trustees. So does anyone in the audience have any questions? Anyone on Zoom have any questions? Okay, trustees, any comments or questions?
In my recollection, it doesn't seem too different than the previous phases, and it's a lot smaller, so I don't have any questions.
Sir?
That's correct.
Oh, no questions.
No? All right, so Scott, welcome to the team. Look forward to working with you.
Yes.
It's been a very, in general, a very successful program so far. However, we have had issues with flagmen and road closures without notice. So the chief of police, Dave Conklin, is here. I hope that you'll coordinate with him on these issues.
Okay.
And number two, we've had some neighbors complain about a loss of view that was on Westlake Road. But you're right, when the last storm came, we were in good shape. We're also considering passing a local law that will start fining the utility if they don't remove redundant telephone poles that are not being used.
Mhm.
Before we do that, we have a list of poles, right, John?
To be honest with you, as I understand it, and I've worked with ONR for a long time, the reason that most of these poles stay as long as they do is because the real issue is Verizon and the cable
Yeah, I
TV
understand.
company.
I
are not
understand that.
doing
But
anything.
we have a series of poles that are just infringing on the roadway that are empty completely, for example, right across from Regna. But
Oh, that one.
Scott, can we work with you on getting these things removed?
Oh, yeah, 100%. As the gentleman just said, usually when we go on a pole and transfer our stuff, we top the pole, cut it in half, and then you see the other utilities that are still remain. We call those, that's the double wood we're talking about here. But if there's just a pole sitting somewhere, there's no reason I can't help you guys out and get that removed for you. Absolutely.
Terrific. We can send you the telephone pole number.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, is it like a yellow, the yellow numbers, the 5/5 we call them on the pole still, or
Yes.
I don't know. All right, yeah, perfect. I can run with that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, so does any of the trustees have questions about minutes from May 26th and June 15th?
I do not.
John, would you like to give your report?
If you don't mind, I'll hand out a written report by the end of the week.
You got it. Jeff?
We've been patching a lot of potholes. Obviously, you saw we did the village office. We patched Acoma Road, Ridge Road, Summit Road, couple spots on Pleasant House, Howard Hill, Westlake, and Weewa. We also regraded and paved the parking lot behind the police station. Over at the Weewa Park, we installed motion sensors for the bathhouse, so when people go in, the light comes on and then it goes off, so we're not wasting electricity. Also installed self closures on the doors, so when people go in, the door closes on its own. Although I have seen the door held open by waste paper baskets and rocks still, I don't know why, but we've been doing some weed whacking on the edges of the roads. We ran a new electric line at the sewer plant for the new steam cleaner that we just got. It needed a heavier wire, so we did that.
It was 220.
Yeah. And then I see you have on here road estimates. You have the paving estimates.
Yes, I'd like to get 2 more estimates.
Will do.
And, okay, anything else? Well, thank you very much for everything you've been doing. Anyone have any questions for Jeff? Jeff, if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to stay. If you'd like to go watch some baseball, you're welcome to do that. Okay, Chief?
Okay, so June, we had 289 calls for service. One arrest. There was 3 either motor vehicle accidents or property damaged. We issued 13 traffic tickets, 15 warning tickets, responded to 8 fire calls, which includes automatic alarms. 2 intrusion alarms, which were false. 1 medical call. We assisted the town of Tuxedo Police Department 2 times. We patrolled 2,877 miles. And the vehicle count, approximate average vehicle count is 894 vehicles per day coming through the gate.
Any update on the automatic gate system in terms of how it's working?
Everything is working great. You know, it's the buy-in, the more buy-in, the better the system works. And it's just, you know, getting people to sign up for it.
Have you started taking away old,
Non-resident tax,
right,
yes,
and people have been cooperating?
so far.
Mhm. Okay, terrific. Okay, on the Cell Communications Committee, something that is on everyone's mind. There's really nothing to update other than there's going to be a meeting tomorrow on Zoom. On Friday? Thank you. On Friday, doing an assessment of where we're at. And we're working with our consultant to do that. Tinka has been kind enough to take over my liaison role to that committee. And so we'll give you more information as soon as we have it. The Weewa Park and Beach Club. We sold a record number of memberships and donations. However, we are subject to the same lifeguard shortages as the rest of the country. And if you would like to see what I'm talking about, you can Google lifeguard shortage 2022, and you'll see hundreds of articles about it. The governor of New York has, in recognition of this issue, has lowered the age of a lifeguard from 16 to 15 in terms of eligibility. And we've presented several candidates to the company that's running our program, and they're going to be trained in the near future. So that's my report there. We have a posted report on water, Justice Court, and a greenhouse gas emissions report prepared by Jim Hayes and Charles Newhouser is also posted online. It's a very good read. You might want to check it out. It's been done in conjunction with information from John and the chief. Okay, let's move to public comments. 2 minutes per person on agenda items only. Why don't I start with people in the room?
Well, I have a question for you before. You had said you wait until the gentleman comes having to do with aggregation.
Uh-huh.
But you had said in December, and I referred to it in January, we're going to look for areas to build solar farms.
Okay, so that task has been taken on by this energy committee, which is run by Jim Hayes, and the liaison to that is Josh Scherer. There has been no movement on that. That was a wish that I had and I published, but we don't know if it's practical or where we would do it.
Okay, so far, there's nothing actually.
No. Anyone else?
Do we comment now on things that are new business later on?
Yeah, please, you want to, yeah, you can go ahead now.
I've got two residents, one able to attend a meeting, so I've got letters to read out.
That you'd like to attach to the record?
Right.
We'll do that.
First one is from Jim Hayes. Dear Mayor McFadden and members of the Tuxedo Park Board of Trustees. It is my understanding that the McLennans of Sunnymead have cut more trees than the number approved by the BZA and BAR earlier this year. In fact, well in excess of the 4 trees allowed in a given year. This is a serious violation of our zoning code and a flaunting of the work of the two boards that were generous in granting McLennan's a variance from our zoning code to build a patio within 100 feet of a lakeshore. Regardless of the environmental effects of tree cutting on steep slopes bordering our lakes, this tree cutting is a violation of our code and our procedures that cannot be overlooked, for it sets a regrettable precedent for others. The Village Board of Trustees must take some action that will send a message to the community that such violations of our rules is not allowed and has consequences. Respectfully submitted, Jim Hayes. I have a second letter from Chu Yin Hempel in their members of the Tuxedo Park Board of Trustees. I have asked a neighbor to read this email into the minutes of tonight's BOT meeting since I can't attend personally. I refer to the Sunnymead landscape item on the agenda. The BZA and BAR spent many hours over many meetings reviewing this landscape application in order to minimize the negative environmental impact of excessive tree cutting on the steep slope of Tuxedo Lake and drinking water reservoir. I attended their meetings and witnessed their hard work. If my memory serves me correctly, the two boards ultimately approved the removal of 4 trees, probably in addition to the 4 per year that can be taken out with their permission. It now appears that many more than 12 trees have been cut down by Ira Wicks, the landscape company. Do we know precisely how many in total? I sincerely hope that the BOT will not give retrospective sanction to unapproved and unspecified tree cutting. Any such approval would be in violation of our village's local law and due process. If one homeowner doesn't then need to adhere to a particular BZA or BAR decision, why would any homeowner abide to any village board decision? Why do we then even bother to have the BZA, BAR, or planning board? I hope the Board of Trustees will instead discuss remedial measures, including replanting to replace the trees that should not have been felled or tasked with afterwards. I would further suggest that the village may wish to instruct all landscapers that any tree cutting, even one tree, should be notified in advance in writing to the building inspector. We cannot expect the landscapers to know our local law, to understand how many trees can be cut down accordingly to code or by special permission. And the too often heard assertion that the tree is dying has lost its credibility. To endorse a fait accompli is not right. Disregard of law and order needs to stop here. Thank you for considering my thoughts. Best regards, Julian.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience? Any comments? Public comment period is open.
Okay. Lily Newhouser, Stable Road. I just was curious about the Canada geese culling permit and what you are planning to do specifically.
Very good questions. Those, we will address that. And I think you'll find that we have the answers you're looking for. It's all posted on the website where we were referring to before.
So I read that piece that's there.
There are permits there. The police chief's safety and implementation plan is there. A support letter from the WEWA committee is there. And we also have, right before the meeting started, a letter from our Lakes manager, AJ, supporting the calling. If you want to, I'll leave that here for you. But it's all posted, except this letter, which is why I have that available. And if you have any follow-up questions during that specific resolution, I'm happy to open it up to you. Okay. Do we have any comments?
Oh, I have a comment from me.
Yes, sir.
Gow, Chair of the Tree Advisory Board. And it's about the goose, the golden goose. The golden goose is our environment. It keeps on laying these golden eggs that we benefit from greatly and take for granted. And not many of us know how to look after the actual goose, how to care for it, protect it. So we do have some few rules and regulations about that, but generally it's common sense. Newer residents perhaps don't understand it so much in our village. So we have these rules and regulations, and the scant rules and regulations that we have about it, if we don't respect them, then we're heading for trouble because the environment is very, very fragile. And cutting down too many trees on the border of the lake increases nutrient load, increases algal, blue-green algal bloom, in the lake. So that's a problem. We don't want that. So if we keep on allowing excessive number of trees to be cut down around the lake, we might as well have a motion to vote to change the name of our reservoir to Tuxedo Lake.
So you're saying, excuse me, you're saying we, who are you speaking for, yourself or for a group?
In general,
But there is no we, you're using we collectively and you're speaking as an individual.
I'm speaking as the chair of the Tree Advisory Board.
Okay,
And that, for example, the situation with this Sunnymead proposal with the Board of Architecture Review, the Board of Zoning, we all agreed on 4 trees instead of 12 trees, oak trees, to be removed. And more trees, properties being clear cut. That's the issue. That is a problem, and it'll increase, in the nutrient load in the lake. So that's alarming. So you as Board of Trustees need to recognize that something needs to be done when something is agreed on and then it's violated. So I'll change that from we to yourselves respectfully.
Well, we rely on the stop work orders and the Justice Court. Anyone on Zoom have any comments? Jake?
You're on mute, Jake.
you're on mute.
There we go.
Okay, yeah, David and the board, I obviously following the Sunnymead proposal and the approval process. And it is a little frustrating to go through the whole process and then have it be totally disregarded. If you go and you look at what Chu Yen sent you a letter, she sent you photos of before and after, and clearly, clearly the trees were clear cut across the bottom. All right, and I'm just it's like I said, why should we even bother to bring somebody in front of the BZA if it's totally going to be ignored? And
Well, I
it's
think
very frustrating.
I think they came to you for zoning issues, right?
For zoning issues, and part of the zoning issues was for construction within 100 foot of the lake. And it was, part of an overall process with how many trees were going to be saved, how much additional landscaping was going to be placed there. And then after we approved it, it went then to the BAR, all right, and then everything was resolved. But obviously they just totally ignored it.
Well, I don't see how the board carrying out its responsibility to approve tree removal, which is in the code, is discounting your board, any board.
Well, the approval was based on how many trees were to remain.
Yes. Now, my understanding is that the original application had 14 trees removed.
Correct. And they decided to remove them.
Hold on. And the current one has 4. Is that correct?
Correct.
And they are planting more than 4 trees. Is that correct?
They are landscaping, not planting large trees.
Are they planting any trees?
I'm not sure what the final approval was from the.
All right, let me ask you a question. We have a bar representative. Are they planting additional trees?
Yes, the agreement was removing 4 trees only and planting some other trees and a riparian buffer. And that was it.
Okay.
And now
and is that something you would normally request of somebody removing trees?
It's absolutely, it's
okay.
on
So there's nothing abnormal here.
Very abnormal. And then
no, where I understand that you're claiming that they cut down more trees than they were allowed. I understand that. But in terms of us reviewing that tonight, how does that undermine your board? This is what we're required to do by law. We respect your decision. It's kicked up to us. And I think it's been clearly stated, we're doing our duty. So
So what do you do? I'm sorry, what do you?
We are going to discuss this application and give our approval or not to them moving forward. And that is our responsibility. I don't understand why you and Jake think that's undermining your board and your decision. You
No,
gave them approval.
I just think that we want to make sure that the decision that both our boards made is looked at when you're addressing this approval or denial.
Okay. We will do that.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I have one question. How many of the 14 trees were less than 8 inches in diameter?
Less than how many?
8 inches in diameter.
There's some of them are significant, some are 17 inches.
That's not my question.
I don't have the answer.
My question, you don't have the answer, okay? The rule, I think we should discuss it.
No, there is Paul, if you take the time and look at the drawing that was approved, it gives the sizes and calipers of all the trees that are being addressed. So I would assume that you would look at the existing drawing that was approved that shows all that.
All right. So anything else from the people on Zoom? Scott, you're not required to stay.
It's like Mark Citron.
Yes, Mark. Mark, there you go.
I'm unmuted now. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I have some brief comments on the proposed slaughter of the Canadian geese. I find it ironic that in a village which so values historic preservation, environmental conservation, whether it's the lakes or the trees, would so cavalierly move forward with a proposed slaughter of who knows how many geese. It's not indicated in any of the notes that I've seen how many would be killed without considering what alternatives might be available. And it really distresses me in light of the history of the culling of deer. Maybe I was not here at the time. Perhaps that was done because they were eating vegetation and people were upset about that. But murdering wildlife because they poop on people's property or in other areas seems to me to be extreme without considering other possibilities to remediate the situation. I do have specific questions with respect to the safety and implementation plan. One in particular, on the second numbered paragraph, the words "no lead shot shall not be used." It's unclear to me what that means. I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there will not be any lead shot used because that lead would obviously, if it's shot towards the lake, would end up in the lake and contaminate the waters. So if I could get an answer to that particular question.
Correct.
I'm sorry, Mayor?
Correct.
Okay, well, I'm pleased to hear that. And my second question is, I have not read anywhere in any of the documents how many geese will be slaughtered. Is there a maximum number? Is there a number per property? What determination, how will it be determined how many geese will be killed during the course of the slaughter?
I'll be happy to address that when we come to the resolution, and you'll be welcome to ask additional questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I will follow.
You're welcome. Okay.
Sue Hayward, I believe.
Your mic is off, Sue.
I'm concerned about both issues, but let's go to the trees first. I looked back at both BAR meetings, and it was clearly agreed by the landscaper that the 12 trees would not be cut down, only 4. If you look at the pictures that he presented then, the photos, you can see exactly where the trees are and what they looked like. You can look at it now and you can judge exactly how many trees were removed. So I'm totally with John Ledwith. I don't understand why there's an issue. I understand why there's an issue, but it's very clear how many trees were removed. and they were removed illegally after an agreement. And then on the geese issue, I'll say I agree totally with Mark Citrin and leave it there. I'm very, very concerned. And the idea of people having guns on the edge of the lake on private properties and shooting what they fancy shooting is appalling. Thank you.
Sue, have you read the permit as well as the safety and implementation plan?
I read what was on your .gov about what was going to happen.
Did you read both of those documents?
Yes, yes.
Well,
But it appears that
it's just not correct to state that it will be people shooting on the edge of their property. That's
well, it
just
said
one
they
of the
had a
options.
permit. They have people with a proper can get a permit to shoot.
That's only one option that's listed.
I still think it's immensely cruel. Put up big riparian borders and stop them landing on these properties. We don't have that many. We really don't. The worst place is the Tuxedo Club because it's clear they took away the hedging that used to be there. Now the geese can fly in and land there, and they do. Now the club has,
we'll address this during the resolution, and you're welcome to make additional comments.
Okay.
Yep. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes, hi. I have comments on both those issues as well, the trees and the geese, but I'm happy to reserve them till after I hear the presentation, if I'll be able to speak at that point, if I have this still.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
I'll let you move forward. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, the public comment period is closed. Let's move on to the consent agenda. We're going to add one item to the consent agenda, and that is a resignation of a police officer, part-time police officer. And Chief handed out that information to the trustees right before the meeting started. And so I'm going to add that as letter item L. And that's the resignation of Officer Gonzalez effective August 3rd. Do any of the trustees have a question about that? Okay. Do any of the trustees have a question about the consent agenda?
No.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve items A through L of this evening's consent agenda. May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to old business. Elizabeth and John, do you have any recommendations for hours for Desiree to do the current open billing? Yeah.
I have none, sorry.
Can we do it up to, not to exceed, right? We only need to go.
This would only be really going back to November approximately.
Right.
So it's only maybe 6 months of work and curtailed some of the.
5 hours or
I would go a little more.
I'd say
10 hours?
not to exceed 10.
not to exceed 10
And 10
hours.
for the whole year?
We'll deal with that. Yeah.
December through now.
Mhm. Okay, any questions on that? Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve up to 10 hours for Desiree Hickey to invoice applicants before the Bar Planning Board and BZA for architectural or engineering consulting services. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's move on to new business and determine whether or not we want to approve the Creating a Community Choice Aggregation Program via vote. Does anyone have a question, trustees? Okay, you're prepared to vote?
Yes.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve draft local law number 5, creating a community choice aggregation program. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the geese. All right, so basically, what's driving this primarily is the DEC and their concern for health hazards created by the geese. The history is that over the years, when the climates become warmer, geese don't migrate as much and are more sedentary. And because of the health hazards, the DEC has recognized that geese should be culled. It's very similar to what happened with the deer. The DEC managed that. The nuisance Canada geese, according to the DEC, problems include overgrazed lawns, accumulations of droppings and feathers on play areas and walkways, nutrient loading to ponds, and public health concerns at beaches and on drinking water supplies. So that would be a reservoir, a backup reservoir. And based on that, they are trying to reduce the number of geese, and that's what's driving this. We have a beach, and every morning it's covered with goose poop, which moves into the sand. It's where E. coli forms, and kids play on it all the time. And that's specifically cited as a health concern by the DEC. I also have a recommendation for goose management from our lakes manager. Northeast Aquatic Research. NEAR is in support of the village undertaking Canadian goose management to reduce nuisance populations in and around the 3 village water bodies. Canadian geese and other waterfowl have the potential to contribute a large amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, and organic matter into the lake through their fecal matter. On an annual basis, one goose can contribute anywhere from 1.15 to 3.11 pounds of, and I don't know how to pronounce that word.
No, Shendal, it's Swedish.
Nitrogen per year, and 0.36 to 1.41 pounds of total phosphorus through fecal matter. And it's all footnoted. Both nitrogen and phosphorus are key elements in promoting excessive algae growth. So limiting all possible sources of nutrients is important and recommended. Geese also are known to contribute fecal bacteria into receiving water bodies. Geese species are known to contain several potential pathogenic bacteria, including, and there's a list, Salmonella, Giardia, along with protozoan, and it goes on. That will be posted on the website. This came in just before the meeting. Now, the comment was made that we haven't considered other options. I'm here to state that we have considered other options. There are other options, including treating the eggs, dogs, noise, and several others. We've considered them. We've also considered, I've considered, excuse me, I'm not speaking for the board, considered the riparian barrier and fencing. That's a longer term solution. It would require the board to mandate by a local law that property front owners had to install a fence or a riparian barrier. I don't think that's appropriate. I certainly wouldn't bring that motion to the table. But there are people living on the water that have done that. And therefore the geese are going to other properties. The club was mentioned. That's an extreme problem. The solution, as far as I'm concerned, and I know some of the trustees don't agree, but long-term, nudging and suggesting that people put in a riparian barrier and a fence potentially, and culling. We have an immediate need for culling based on what's happening at the Weewa and what's happening to our drinking water with all the awful stuff that's being put into the lakes. And I understand how some of the people that are typically more conservative environmentally here would feel, but it must put you in a bit of a hard place because of what the damage is to the water and potential health hazards for the children that are playing on the beach as well as adults. So we also have a letter of support from the Weewa Beach Committee. And in talking to Jim Hayes, his idea would be, he mentioned hiring a biologist as well as having people put in the riparian barriers and fences. I told them I would consider that as part of an all of the above solution. But that's that. Now, in terms of the permit, the culling permit, we have between 100 and 200 geese. And there's no plan to take out all of them. But if you were to ask me how the DEC would view success, they would view success as taking out all of the geese. That would be 100% success. That's not going to be possible this year. We only have through September 31st. And we haven't determined how many to take, but if you want to measure success, the DEC measures it by taking all of the geese. So what has happened on the permit is that wherever geese appear was listed on a tax map for the DEC, and those properties were given approval to cull geese on their own if they chose to do that. So as it stands right now, there is not a single resident that has said they are going to or will start culling geese at random. The chief has written at my request a safety and implementation plan. It involves having to have and this is based on the DEC, a hunting license and various other requirements. As it stands now, the culling will take place between sunrise and 10 on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays only. And whoever's doing the culling has to call in that they're going to cull, what property. That recreation and boating will be closed on that lake during that period of time. And the DEC permit requires people to not only count for, but deliver the dead goose carcass. We're currently looking at a participating food pantry, which is.
No one's gonna eat a Canada goose, trust me. Not viable.
We're trying, and we'll find out. I know the Sloatsburg one won't because I checked with them. Have you checked with others?
I'm talking about, have you ever eaten a Canada goose?
I've read that they're tasty, yes. I have not.
It depends on what they're eating. If they're eating a lot of fish or anything that, trust me, no. But, sorry.
No, it's okay for you to express that opinion. We are looking for a food pantry. While it may not be on your palate, maybe there will be people that would enjoy eating a goose. It depends on how it's prepared. We did that with the deer as well. All right. So in addition to that, we have chosen the type of shot, and we've specified in the implementation and safety plan that it could be done by the police or an individual property owner or a professional culling company. And the chief and I are actively looking at that. We would be very comfortable with the outside culling company, professional culling company, if that's what's necessary. So with that, I'll open the floor to additional questions on the topic. Would you like to start, Leland?
Yeah, in essence, I'm for doing something with the geese. The things I have an issue with are if it's a property owner, we don't have a lot of time. This is training that's time consuming for them to do. I'm conversant with it because both Charlie and Sky are very much gun folk. And neither one would eat a Canada Goose, I'm just my concern is that anybody who's doing anything, it has to be trained, and I'm sure the chief will take care of that, you all will, because this is serious business. Especially considering how close other people are. The other thing I'm concerned about is just the fact that a lot of folks are not used to the noise. It'll travel much further on a flat surface like a lake. We all know how noise travels on a lake. This is going to be considerable. We can hear Thunder Mountain at our house. That's over 2 miles away. A shotgun, it's about 155 decibels. It's considerable. I'm worried about people who are just not conversant with firearms hearing this, no matter what our police do. This is scary stuff, considering what we see on TV every day and what's going on in the world. You know, young children. I stand next to someone shooting a shotgun. It's a little scary, even though I know what's going on. So those are just a couple of the things that is concerning to me. To Mark's point, lead shot cannot be used anywhere near the water because that's illegal. So that, but again, I'm sure with the chief and everybody that that's going to be straightened out. But it's really more of the neighboring people and properties, and will everybody be notified when this is happening?
Well, couple answers. Our village code requires a 500-foot clearance. So the only way a private person could do it would be if the neighbors permitted it. So that would be one step in our quiver. The other thing is that you mentioned noise. You're right about that. One thing that really scatters the geese is noise, including shotguns. And so if they are afraid of the shotgun sound, and we've set off 5 rounds, that's a good thing. There's no reason to continue. But sound is a very, very good deterrent.
Yeah, I'm saying for.
I understand completely. No, I understand completely what you said. In addition to shooting, the permit allows us to trap and destroy the geese. There are several companies out there that claim to be experts in doing that, where they hoard the geese into a net and then dispose of them that way. And that's also permitted under the permit. Let's move to Mark, and then we'll move to Sue and Elizabeth. Mark, would you like to turn on your mic if you have any questions?
Mayor, you answered my question about the number of geese that are in the village. I know it's just an estimate, 100 to 200. But I believe, I stated earlier, I'm just repeating that I believe this is an inhumane way to solve the problem. And it just seems to me, even though you've indicated that you have personally researched this matter, that a village that can spend years trying to figure out whether they want a cell tower placed somewhere in the village can decide overnight, essentially, that they want to destroy wildlife. And there's a conflict there that I'm not happy with. So
this has been something that I've been focused on for over 10 years. I don't know why you would say that it's overnight.
I would say that because is this not the first time that this has been placed on the public agenda at a board?
No. On the public agenda? Yes. I posted the permit 2 weeks ago on the internet and sent out a notice.
And then I stand on my point that still can't figure out whether the village is going to place a cell tower somewhere, and we're willing to do this in one meeting. And I think that's much too fast. And the public should be permitted to hear from and make recommendations and voice opinions with respect to the alternatives of a slaughter. And that's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you.
And that's why we're here tonight, to hear public views.
Without an expert making a presentation.
The expert is the DEC. They're the expert. And they approved it with a permit. They wouldn't willy-nilly give us a permit if they didn't think it was appropriate. And by the way, they know our lakes. They recognize that we have a beach. They're very concerned about that. They recognize that we have drinking reservoirs and that we have reserve drinking reservoirs. And our own lake manager is supportive. You know, these things can draw out for years. I mean, I've read many situations where, you know, the permit only lasts through September 31st.
There is no September 31st. I believe it's August 31st. And
no, it's September 31st.
There is no September 31st.
Are you looking at the permit?
It's not the permit. I'm looking at the implementation plan. But
if it's August, then it's even more critical that we make a decision.
That's right. And that you're rushing this proposal through because there is a deadline and the deadline is fast approaching. But the time is of the essence is not necessarily the appropriate way to handle this type of issue.
I'm relying on the DEC.
They
gave me the permit. We're hearing public opinion today. There's a group of people in the park, respectfully, that of course will be against it. And there's others that support it fully. And what we will weigh is how many people are against it and how many people support it in our decision. And that does not require a hiring of an expert or a biologist. This is a small community. You know, this is not a big bureaucracy here. That's one of the things I enjoy about what I'm doing. But the fact is, we're not rushing anything.
In all due respect,
this would be
agenda today.
This would be part of a, as I mentioned when I spoke to Jim Hayes, that culling would be one part of a solution, which can include many other avenues. Why don't you judge by what we do and not what we say?
Well, I do appreciate that point, but the fact is the other alternatives are not fully explored before the public. It's simply you reciting what you have researched over how many weeks or months you've done that. And in an issue as significant as this, just as you present experts on other issues who explain what the options are, I believe that the public should have the opportunity to listen to an expert, not a written document from the DEC, and debate the point and ultimately allow the board, after hearing full discussion, make a decision on whether this is an appropriate action to take to resolve a problem.
Well,
let me ask a question. We had a situation where we culled deer. Okay. Deer were a rampant problem. You had Lyme disease, you had a lot of stuff. And in that process, we authorized the police to shoot deer. And there was a bounty per head, as I remember it. I'm trying to remember the process by which it happened. Do you remember what was the process?
They put together, I think, 4 or 5 of them. It was very effective. They took 30 to 40 in a winter, and we really eradicated the issues that we have back rampantly, as far as I'm concerned. Half of my garden has been.
Yeah, we also hired a company to do the culling as well. Initially.
And then they were training the police, and then they did it. And as I was mayor then, I was party to it. I cooked them dinner. I mean, I did all sorts of stuff.
Not with goose.
And it did not serve goose, and they would not eat.
Yeah. So the answer is, we had a situation with environmental hazard in deer that was solved through culling. There was significant community disagreement about it. There were people who put hay out to feed the deer.
Corn.
Salt.
And salt to lick, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's controversy is not a big issue. The surprise to me in this process is the clear statement of health risk with respect to the geese. I've seen a lot of goose shit. I've walked in it. You know, it's on my property. I had a dog, it was never a problem. Now it's a problem because I don't have a dog. So the answer is, I think, from my perspective, it is a health problem. We're talking about a permit which is 3 days a week for somewhere between 5 and 9 weeks. Right?
It's actually a
August,
permit for,
September.
it's a permit, a daily permit. But the chief and I wanted to contain the noise to a smaller amount.
Look, I agree. I think I commend you to say 8 to 10 is a nice time. 3 days during the week are fine. I have no idea if the deer are going to hang around after you, right, after they're shot 1 or 2 times, right? So, you know, given the health problem, I would tend to discount the issue of an endangered population. The geese are not an endangered species, especially Canadian geese. And therefore, looking at it, you know, I talked to people about it earlier, and I said, is this a problem? I don't want to do something that fixes a problem that's not a real problem. I'm now convinced that it is a real problem and we should do something. The authorization to how we do it maybe requires a little more input, but it's a time frame that is workable. And if people want to suggest to us anything about how it should be done in a more humane way, if that is the issue, you know, we could look at it and say, you know, authorize it effective, you know, 2 weeks from today and go from there. And the authorizations, as we choose how we implement it, is it going to be nets? Is it going to be guns? Is it going to be massive dissemination of birth control pills for geese so they don't reproduce? I've seen all the issues, but the answer is, if people want additional comment, I think we should welcome it. We should respect it. But our responsibility as trustees is to protect the health of the village. And the geese appear to be a public health problem, and therefore we should, I'm supportive of passing this, this, you know, accepting this permit.
We're lucky, the analogy though, with the deer and the geese, we're lucky that with the geese problem, there are more options for us to entertain, to diminish them.
Such as?
Well, I don't think that's true. There were, excuse me, you were not here for the deer problem. We arranged for a system where we shooed the deer out of Tuxedo Park. Okay, we tried to.
I'm talking about the geese, about the options. for
Yeah,
geese,
I'm
not
telling you,
deer.
there was an option with there. And the state environmental people and the kids were all together. We're just going to do a walk through. And they said they wanted everyone to have a hunting permit to do it. Because if you're shooing animals and they may shoot them in Sloatsburg, you need a hunting license. So we look, excuse me, there were options at that point, and those options were considered, and we ended up with the clean option.
I'm talking about the options for the geese.
Such as?
And so to use this appropriate but inappropriate term, to kill 2 birds with 1 stone,
What are the options that you're referring to?
riparian buffer.
Oh, no. Look, do you know anything about trees? I have property, geese fly. They come down and plop wherever they want.
Do you have a riparian buffer?
No,
Oh, there you
they
go.
climb, and I'm not gonna put up a riparian buffer. So I appreciate your thought. If you'd like to do it in a form, we will consider it. We as the board will consider it. But when I hear your point, my judgment is, let's move forward with the approval of the culling.
Okay, so would Elizabeth or Sue like to make any additional comments? Sue has her hand up. Sue has her hand up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't think the problem is as much as you are making out. I really don't. I mean, I've been on the lake so many times this year and we've looked around and we've enjoyed the geese landing. Hey, there aren't that many. There are other solutions to this cruel, cruel method of getting rid of these geese, and they will come back. Others will come back. It won't be the end of the geese if you get rid of all of them.
What is your, what are you referring to when you say other methods that aren't as cruel?
No, I didn't say other, well, stopping them from landing on the places you don't want them to land by the riparian borders.
How do you do that?
Yeah. And how do you do
Well, they come off the lake and they can't land on the grass if there's something in the way.
Oh, so you can put an electric fence over your lawn so the
No,
geese don't land on it.
no, something that stops them. They can't
Hey,
zoom in and
Look,
land.
we have a limited time
mean-
for a meeting when we have other things
Yeah.
to do. I would say, if you want to propose a solution to us, write it in the next week, and we will consider it in how we execute the culling issue.
It may be too late, mightn't it? I'm not sure who I'm speaking to.
This is Paul Brook,
Oh, okay,
okay? So you can actually, you know, you've
okay,
got a week to put it together. We'll
okay.
consider it the following week. And if we pass this, it'll be effective in 2 weeks.
So Paul, knowing where you live, do you have a problem? I don't think you do because of all the vegetation on the edge of the
Yes,
lake.
I do.
And how does it affect your life and your?
All right, let's,
If you walk down, there's goose shit you step on. You go on the steps, there's goose shit, right? I have kids coming over, they're stepping in it. Thank you, no. So, but that's irrelevant here. The issue is, in my capacity as trustee, we're looking at it. We're happy to entertain. What you're talking about is, is it a problem and is there a humane way of dealing with it? So are you agreeing there is a problem? No. Are you agreeing that there's a more humane way? Yes. We think there's a problem. If you'd like to suggest a more humane way, provide something to us to consider.
I don't think it's necessary to do at all. They will come back even if
Okay,
you
so
tell them now.
fine. So you're saying you don't think there's a problem. We appreciate that
No.
point of view.
all right, let's move on to Elizabeth and then Meg Bott,
Okay, I have.
and then we're going to end it. Please keep it brief.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll keep it brief. I understand the overpopulation problem. That's real. There are too many geese. That's just a symptom of our whole entire environment being out of balance. How do we address the problem? I think what you're discussing is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. And I think your arguments or reasons, I should say, for culling are the same reasons for asking or insisting or mandating riparian barriers. I know there's a lot of objections to that. People like that clean lawn shot at the lake, but for the environment, this calls back to the trees being cut. Any landowner who has property, I have two properties on the Big Lake and one property on Weewa. It's your responsibility to do what you need to do to maintain the quality of the water. It's not, I want this, I don't want that. I need to see, I don't want to look between the trees. I just want a clear view. You need to consider more than your own desires. I understand the health issues, they're real. However, I have a beach on the Weewa that was inundated with geese. I put some logs there, I put some plants there, some rocks. They don't bother me anymore. They probably jump down to the Weewa because they have a clear shot at the lawns there. So that's my piece about that. The landing, they do need 50 feet of landing strip, which is why people say, let's kind of work around the lawns. You can do plantings, you can do sculptures, you can do boulders. And what else did I want to say? Oh, the sound and the shooting, that's really unnerving. Starting guns at 6 a.m. I'm a writer. I work at my home. I don't leave and go to New York City. I'm here, and so is my husband. He's a composer. Quiet is very important to us. We already adjust ourselves to the constant leaf blowing for the majority of the year. I think to have to deal with gunshots firing at 6 a.m. 3 days a week is too much to ask.
Okay. You can reserve your other points for the tree discussion.
Yeah, I think Debbie covered that.
And I know you wanted to talk about the trees as well. Can you hold that until we go to that next resolution?
I think it'll be a bit redundant to what others are saying, but
Okay.
if I can hang in long enough, I'll.
Okay. Let's see who's next. Meg?
Yeah, hi. I just have a quick comment and then a question. I guess my comment or observation would be that the goose poop at the Weewa has been an issue for as long as I can remember. However, historically, the Weewa employed full-time employees who cleaned that up, so it wasn't really a health hazard. The Board of Health was in there actually looking at it, and because there were people there cleaning up the poop in the sand, that wasn't really an issue. So I don't think that the new management of the Weewa has any full-time employees to do something like that. I'm sure we're not asking our DPW to do it. So to me, it just seems a little unfair to say we're going to kill these animals because we're not willing to clean their poop anymore from a municipal swimming area.
Okay, so the current lifeguards clean the poop every morning. I said it earlier, maybe you didn't hear me. They clean it every morning, but the fact of the matter is, it still contaminates the soil from the moisture of the poop. Who's saying, come on?
That's Sue.
Sorry, me.
Please don't interrupt. So it includes E. coli. We clean the poop every day, just to let you know.
No, I believe it. And having had one of my children be that person for several summers in a row, I can tell you it needs to be cleaned actually probably more than once a day. But this leads into my question, which is, aside from that letter from the DEC, do we have any hard evidence within our community of the negative impacts that the geese have actually had on health, i.e. has anybody actually gotten E. coli from playing on the sand at the beach? Do we have any samples of water that show that the goose poop is what's contaminating it? Because this is something that's been discussed for a long time. I've sat through meetings after meetings for years and years where we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars testing water samples just so we could pull weeds. And I'm going to agree with Mark here on this and everyone who spoke before me when I say all of a sudden in the span of one day, this information was posted to the website and you guys are ready to vote on it. And while I understand the frustration and Trustee Brooke in particular, I get it, living on the water, it's frustrating, but the main reason, you cited was that people are stepping in shit. I don't think that's a good.
Oh, that's not the main reason. I made all my references to the DEC. They're experts. They employ biologists. They're in charge of this culling program. They wouldn't have given us a permit if they didn't think it was necessary. They're very familiar with our lakes. They reference the beach. They're claiming, and so is, I don't know if you were here when I read the letter from our own lakes manager.
I was here.
But he footnotes all of these items. I'll put this on the website. This is about the health of the village. And I understand, that some people may be against it. But we're responsible for that. And I take my cues from the DEC. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to have to end discussion on this.
Okay, can I go? Okay, so a couple things. I think this is a horrible decision for the reputation of our village and the safety of our residents, this manner of culling. I find it hard to believe that all of a sudden we have a goose problem. And ironically, the letter today from the Lakes Committee shows up saying that it's a problem despite multiple years of reports from, not the Lakes Committee, AJ, and never mentions a goose problem in the health of our lakes. I've heard people cite, health of the lakes, we got to do this because of our drinking water, yet riparian barriers is something that's been cited by the Lakes Committee and the Tree Advisory Board for years to help prevent excess nutrients going into the lake, yet we have stern objections to putting that on our lawns. So now we want to clean up the goose shit, but not put the riparian barriers in because of the health of the lake, even though riparian barriers are health of the lake. Second of all, the condition number 3 on the permit says this authorization may not be used to remove geese in areas where they are merely a nuisance. Merely a nuisance is poop. Okay, health of the water is not, which is where I think you get in this permit from. John, led with, has our drinking water been tested regularly?
Yes.
Has there ever been anything related to goose poop saying that this is an alert and we have some harm in our water?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. Obviously, we haven't had any health reports. The Department of Health would have probably come down on us if we had people getting sick from our beach, and we have no reports of that. So that's a couple of things. DEC, yes, approve the permit. But on the DEC's website, it also says it recommends taking multiple steps to alleviating problems, that there is no one single solution. We need a comprehensive plan, not one that involves discharging firearms in a residential area on a lake. There are professionals that will do this. We should hire a professional. I suggest today we pay a biologist $500 to give us an assessment of the problem. And I was told, no, we're not doing that. Jim Hayes seconded that we should do that. And I think we should listen to the chair of the Lakes Committee when he makes a recommendation like that. You stated,
We
Mayor,
did listen to it.
and then you said, no, I'm not doing that.
You already said you weren't voting for this.
I didn't say that. I said
Yes, you did.
objected without clarity, and I didn't get clarity until the Weewa Lakes.
First of
Beach
all,
Committee-
there's no reason to raise your voice.
Okay, you're right. You're right. My apologies. But I never said I wasn't going to vote for this. I said I objected without clarity. We didn't have a single complaint in writing. We didn't have a single record of any issue with geese. And we were about to vote on something only because at that point, the mayor said it was a problem. I talked to somebody today at the Weewa Beach, a resident of the village, and I said, I'm here looking to see if there's any goose poop all over the place. Have you had any problems? He said, no, I've been here all summer. Never had a problem.
That's right. We're cleaning it every morning.
Great, that's great. And I was there yesterday morning at 7:30, didn't see any goose poop anywhere. So I'm not saying it's not there. I'm saying I haven't seen it, and I think everybody on the board should see, when we make a decision like this, should see the background, the proof, and understand that this is a real problem, especially because it is controversial and people are going to question why I've made this decision. And we should have the backup to say it should be a slam dunk. Problems with shooting geese in a residential area. We have 100 to 200, so you say, although I've never seen more than 60 at one spot at all. So I don't know how we counted that. I don't know where that record exists, who's doing the counting. So if we're going to shoot 100 geese, it's 100 discharges of firearms on property around the lake. Where one issue with the chief's plan that I learned today, you can't have number 2, number 4 BB shot. The law states in Tuxedo Park, you can only use bird shot. So that's like 6 to 7.5. I don't know how many people want to kill geese with bird shot. It can be done, but you're going to maim a lot of geese. So you're going to have bigger problems here. All right. I would like the board to not rush through this, to discuss this and other options like the DEC recommends, and have a comprehensive plan. And again, it's a brand new problem. It hasn't been brought up to this board or anybody. Chiefs never received a complaint about geese. John Ledowitz never received a complaint about geese. I don't know if the DPW superintendent's ever received a complaint about geese. I've never asked Elizabeth. But all of a sudden, this is a problem.
I can
And
tell
I don't
you-
think that we've had the right amount of background for this board to make an informed decision. I think we should hire a professional, make a recommendation, and then consider a decision.
No, as I mentioned to you, there are quite a few people that have formally claimed that there is a problem on their property.
And I've asked for their names so I could ask them for details and have a conversation for clarity, and I've gotten none of them.
And I told you, because people don't want to be associated with it because of blowback from a community or PETA. And I told you that, and I said, you're welcome to find out yourself. You can call people and contact them yourself, although you might run into that same problem. However, I am not, as long as I'm mayor, going to dox people.
I'm not going to dox people either.
Well,
Yeah, when I brought up,
Chris.
I've heard people that disagreed with this and objected. What did you say? Who?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Do you have anyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't you reveal it?
Why didn't you reveal? I think the
Because
burden should be
there's-
on you to tell me who's complaining about the problem.
Let me make a motion. Okay. We have 1 month till the next trustee meeting. I think this should be on the agenda for the next trustee meeting. And, you know, you have issues about nobody having complained about it. You know, from my perspective, I'm actually a person who suffered with it and say,
Same.
it's just goose. It's nature. You got to deal with it as you deal with it. But now we're dealing with something that could be a larger problem.
Mhm.
I think I would suggest what we do is gather whatever information we need for a meeting to be held at the next board meeting. And then execute a plan if we decide we need one at that meeting
Mhm.
and terminate this discussion today because it's getting late.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I would like to just comment, though. This push for riparian barriers and fences is not something, as mayor, I would ever put into local law. I think it's frankly inappropriate to tell a property owner on the lake who's already being taxed that they are required to put in a riparian barrier or a fence. I'm not going to put a fence in front of my boathouse. And for people that don't live on the lake to suggest that shows a certain disconnect with the reality. You know, who's going to cut that $20,000 check?
Okay, let me address. I don't support fences. That doesn't affect the health of the lake. Vegetative barriers affect the health of the lake.
Great. So would you mandate that for somebody to put in?
I think,
It's,
yes,
what if it's
I
20
would.
grand? Well, that's rude. It won't
And-
happen
and
as long as I'm
I
mayor.
wouldn't, I would do it if somebody had a landscaping plan in front of the bar. I think the bar. should
Well,
be
we
put
are
in
making
and-
good progress. I don't know
Yes,
if
I
you
don't
read
think-
Josh's
I wouldn't-
statement. Josh said we're making good progress on
I
that.
agree with
There are
that.
several people that
And
are
that's what
already
we should
doing it.
Continue to do. I would never say starting tomorrow, you have to put a.
Well,
riparian
I
barrier.
mean, you're looking at 2 to 3 years out minimum.
Yes, that's fine.
No, it's not fine. We have a health problem.
No, we don't. We don't have any evidence of a health problem.
Okay, last time you asked me to show you evidence was over the Weewalk
Okay.
Beach Club.
I have a
All right, I-
proposal.
And
We're gonna-
you discounted all of those letters. You said, oh, those are people that voted for you anyway, and you blew them off.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about the Wheel Beach Club. We're talking about discharging weapons in a residential area to kill geese.
We understand that. There's other alternatives.
Yes, but.
We're
that's not
aware
what-
of those alternatives.
But
And
we're
I agree
talking
with, look, I agree that we should table this discussion until the next meeting.
Okay, I
And-
got that too.
And we will,
Can we hire a
we-
biologist for $500 a day to give us a recommendation and
No.
assessment?
no,
Do any other trustees think that that's a good idea? $500.
When-
For
when are they
professional.
gonna be here tomorrow?
I can ask him next month. I talked to somebody today.
and what are they going to tell us that the DEC isn't telling us?
The DEC is not telling me anything. The DEC gave you a permit because you said we have geese on a beach and a lake, and they said, yes, good, go kill
Well, that's not how it works.
them. That is how it
Are you
works, 'cause I
speaking for
talked
the
to him
D-
today.
Okay.
Yes,
Look,
So
would
I understand-
say-
I
would say-
understand,
look,
but I don't give a
I'll-
shooting.
I'll amend my motion and say, we authorize $500 for you to get a report, and we consider this at the next meeting. Yes or no? And anybody who wants to submit additional information can do so.
I second it.
You know, we spent enough time on it. You know, let's keep going. So we're tabled this till the next meeting.
So
And we have $500 to bring this.
make a
back.
motion
I,
to
Go ahead.
arrange with the building inspectors input, spend $500 on a goose biologist for a recommendation and assessment.
now, what if there's how do you, that they're neutral? There's goose biologists that might
Okay.
be
But that's
anti-goose
Okay,
and then
We'll
that may be
have-
pro-goose.
we'll have the report. He's gonna do it. We'll
Okay.
make a
The
decision.
guy I talked
in
to
a month.
today is not, he's
Yeah.
clearly eager to come and get rid of geese.
Who is?
This guy I talked to today.
Where?
He's in New Jersey, New York,
Oh,
goose
he's a,
biologist. He's
Okay.
a goose removal
No,
guy.
no,
It's his
he's a goose.
business.
So I think when you do it, we have, so it's not just saying that we got a problem, it's also recommending
Right.
a way
He
to do it.
provides an
which-
assessment and
with-
recommendations.
but
you know,
he's a businessman who wants to cull geese.
Yes, he
Have you
is,
made color-
he is.
And does he use dogs?
Listen,
Does he ever
it
advocate
doesn't-
shooting?
Look,
Look,
we made a
I'll-
decision, excuse me, we made a
All
decision
right.
that this is tabled and there's a $500 budget allocation that Chris can deal with.
Right, so why don't you make the resolution, Chris?
Well,
Well, I made the resolution.
we gotta say it in second. And all right,
Okay.
then I second Paul's resolution.
All in favor of hiring a biologist for $500 to make a recommendation to the board? May I have a second?
Oh, didn't he second or? did-
Yeah, he
Oh,
seconded.
All in
Everyone's
favor?
like,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, let's move on to,
And it's on the schedule for the next board. meeting.
yes, we'll put it on the schedule for the next board meeting. Okay, now, The other controversial issue tonight, let me try and frame this up. The trustees are not interested in overturning any recommendations by any appointed board. I made that clear earlier. We are only looking at a tree issue and actually something that hasn't been discussed is the DEC wildlife approval to do any work there. So my understanding is that there were 14 trees proposed to be removed on the original application. Then the current one is 4. And they will, and in their plan, they're doing replacement when, they're planting other trees. And I believe that they're putting in a riparian barrier and all the other things that have been talked about tonight. So since they've already been approved to take out 4 trees, we can confirm that we agree that they can take the 4 trees, although I don't think it's necessary. But what is necessary?
This is for beyond the 4 they're allowed.
Right. Now, I will give you some more background. Apparently there's some photographs of additional trees that were taken down. As I responded to others that sent me that information today, and to John as well, I asked them about that, and they sent me a correspondence between them and Wix claiming that the trees were dying or dead. Now, I understand that there's some folks that they think that's just a easy way to get out of something. I know Wix to be responsible and reliable. I haven't had any bad experiences. I don't know if John has, but I'm going to take Wix's word for it. Now, the other issue was disturbing endangered species. In other words, to me, that's the final step. And that was regarding long-eared bats and rattlesnakes. The eagle was determined to be across the lake. So in the back and forth between the client and DEC Wildlife, they received approval to move forward without a take permit, which would require special emphasis in terms of construction around the site. So I think this evening, what I'd like to do is propose approving their ability to move forward. And then I think what I'm going to recommend is that John then go down and check out this tree situation. And if there is a problem during his inspection, that can be sent to Justice Court. And so I think theoretically that should satisfy all parties. So if anyone would like to comment or ask questions on that.
Brian, is there any procedure issues that we
To
should
be very
look at?
honest with you, I was not on any of these emails that I'm seeing, so this packet is the first time I'm seeing this, so I really don't feel comfortable giving an opinion tonight on it.
Okay.
So this is a resolution approving what's already been approved.
Well, it's a resolution approving, I don't think we need to do the trees. I think we can take that out of the resolution because they reduced it to 4. They've taken additional 4 based on Wix, but the DEC approval was required. So we should just acknowledge, we can acknowledge that by resolution. But I think that we should approve them commencing with the project.
I would
conditionally based on the DEC approval.
With John's oversight.
I don't understand why the board is voting on the DEC approval.
We're not, we're voting on them moving forward.
Why does the board need to vote on them moving forward?
Well, otherwise it has to go back to another board because it's been stopped. So somebody has to review it.
But hasn't it gone from like 4 trees? They're approved of 4 trees, so they're basically asking for approval for the other 4 trees.
No, they did not ask for approval for the trees. They have Wix claiming they were dead. And so they were removed. I presented excellent support.
You're allowed 4 years.
Correct.
And they were given permission for 4 more.
And then
Right.
And then I don't know about the sizes, but from my perspective, the issue about the trees here, and I attended the bar meeting in which the stuff occurred, was so remarkably resident unfriendly. Right, that I think we have to look carefully that the 4-tree rule maybe should be adjusted for acreage. Right? There are lots of ways you could do that. And we are in process of looking at the powers of the different boards, BZA, ZBA, BAR.
Right.
So we need to undertake that larger issue, right? Balance environmental rights with property owner rights. And we'll do that. But for this purpose, I think from the perspective of the board, I would say we approve whatever the DEC.
Right. So
We support it. And
Brian,
to the extent the ruling is necessary,
the project was put on hold, even though it got all of its approvals. When was your approval? What month? Okay, so a couple of months ago, the project was approved. Then somebody, a neighbor or resident called the DEC and claimed that they shouldn't be allowed to work because of the protected species. So the client did not start. The applicant did not start. Over the last 2 months, in back and forth with the DEC gave a written approval for them to proceed. Now, we can just give them, we can, which board is the most practical to deal with that? Should we send it back to the bar? Should we send it back to the BZA? Or if the trustees approve it, it's done?
Who told them to stop?
The DEC.
Told them to stop. And then the DEC said, you're good.
Yes, correct.
So why can't they just start again? I don't understand why the board had, it's not, it's not
Well,
like,
as I said, I wanted to give cover to the client because if they proceed, it might be nice to have a resolution approving the procedure.
yeah.
If you
all
don't,
I have
if
is an
you
email from DEC. This says resolution of their application. I haven't seen their application. I have no idea what I'm voting on. I don't think we need to do this. John sent us things about trees. I don't know. Brian, I think,
what do you think, Brian?
I thought this was about trees from the emails I saw, so I don't understand why.
Did you see the DEC email?
Well, the DEC, if they stopped them, would have nothing to do with the village. You know, the village, if the village
Okay.
issued a stop work order, then the village needs to remove it. But
Fine.
if there's not one, then.
All right, so
Stopping them.
okay, fine.
So
Then we don't need to do anything. That's fine. And I think John should, if you look at these pictures and you think there's some issue there, you should go and check it out. And then take it from there.
can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
Just, I want to appreciate Christopher and Jake and Mark and everybody who made comments about this issue. And, those of you who made comments have dedicated time and expertise to this village and the betterment of this community for many years. And I do think that your recommendation for John to go inspect and resolve these allegations of too many trees and if they're in compliance with the bar resolution or not is worth of them taking the time to come talk to us and bring it up to us and just have some clarity on this issue and then report back and let us know that they're in accordance with the bar or not. I don't like accusations being floated around. I'd like to kind of nip it in the bud. We have a building inspector whose job it is to do that.
I believe if there are excess trees, your code, while it does have you permitting, it still requires bar approval and a permit from the village board. So if they are exceeding, then it would seem they would have to go back to the bar to get approval for that. And if it's not, otherwise it'd be a violation.
Right.
Which it may be now. I don't know the facts behind it, but that's.
I think from the perspective of the board, this probably doesn't need to come before us.
Mhm.
But I would let the record state that we are sympathetic to what the property owner is trying to do. And, we don't need to take a vote on it.
Mm-hmm.
John will check, but my sense what they're doing is perfectly okay.
Okay. Chris and Tika, you okay with that?
Yeah, basically it's no action.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. The next agenda item is a resolution to schedule a public hearing on removal of utility poles. John, this is something you want to move forward with, right?
Yes, I would. I had
Okay.
a brief discussion earlier this
We
evening
had-
with Brian Nugent.
Right, we had one draft. We don't have a final draft. We'll have to produce that soon. But I'd like to schedule the hearing. Resolution to schedule a public hearing on August 17th, 2022 at 7 PM on the draft local law number. What do you think, Elizabeth? 6 of 2022. Penalties for utility companies for a lack of response to move unused telephone poles. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any budget transfers?
No.
Okay. So I think what we should do then is go into executive session.
Can I just make a note of one thing for the?
Yes, please.
That after an election, you're supposed to, shred the unopened
Mhm.
ballots. I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I found out. So I just, and it's supposed to be noted at the board meeting. So I wanted it to note that the shrink wrapped packages of ballots intended for the June 21st, 2022 village general election have been destroyed by shredding. The inventory of all destroyed unopened packages of unused ballots is as follows. Ballot numbers 51 through 350. The total number of packages destroyed was 6, and the date that this happened was today. I also did the same for the last year's election, because I didn't know I was supposed to do it until now. So I'd like to know for the record that the unopened packages of ballots intended for the June 15th, 2021 village general election have been destroyed by shredding. The inventory of all destroyed unopened packages of unused ballots is as followed. Ballot numbers 201 through 400. Total number of packages destroyed was 2, and the date was today.
It's on the record. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right,
1 minute of good news.
yes,
Oh, absolutely.
please.
Here we go. So with Cornell University and TBS School, we did a ticket count on the racetrack nature preserve. And there was 0. We met multiple times. And we also did Weewar Beach Club, Park, and likewise 0 ticks.
Sure you're doing it right? I mean, that's amazing.
Many of my colleagues were having the same problem, but we're all a little bit bittersweet because if we had ticks, Cornell University would have identified them, tested them for pathogens, and we would know what diseases they were carrying. So we would have loved to have. I tried testing. The other point is I've been asked before about kudzu, the vine that ate the salmon, that invasive species. One of the residents asked if we had it in the park. And I said, no, we didn't, we do. Except it's been eradicated. The homeowner, early detection, rapid response, they got rid of it completely. That's good news. Not so good news is Japanese knotweed is spreading. It's actually on the DPW property now. So we probably should address that in the fall. That's the best time to have a license and treatment of that. And I want to thank Elizabeth for looking after the
My
native
pleasure.
garden here, where we planted a lot of native species with didactic labels. And we've included the smoke tree in honor of Pierre Lorillard and how this place was founded with tobacco. So I don't know whether you noticed it, smoking, it has these blossoms like smoke.
They look like.
And to Tatiana Emetskaya, she made the rain garden.
Which is beautiful.
Thank you. And the last thing, Sunday, October 9th, is the blessing of the animals at St. Mary's. And we're going to continue the celebration at the Racetrack Nature Reserve. Encourage people to bring their pets. And we're going to have a judge, give awards, best in show. So,
Have you written that up? Because I put it on the website.
once we get all the details, we'll get.
Great.
So start grooming, y'all.
I have a short hair, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to move into executive session.
Yeah.
Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees leave the regular meeting at 9:09 to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing legal matters, the police contract, justice court procedural discussion, 3, tax billing and penalty matters, collection of delinquent water billing. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we can go,
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
Do you want to stay for the PBA?
yeah, let's do the
Just-
PBA
I
first.
don't think we have a whole lot, but
Yeah, let's get everybody in the waiting room and we'll be back. Elizabeth? Would you do me a big favor and fill this for me?
Sure.
Thanks. Ba-dum-bum-bum.